touch-starved neuter. This is...
Touch-starved neuter. It's going to be like Pushing Daisies, where they have a relationship through saran wrap.
Welcome to Inchworm,
the podcast in which we're inching through worm. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Ted.
And we read a Hive 5.8.
Getting deep into the Hive.
Yes. Yeah. This one was like a little lower key than the last one. Not so much combat. They were basically rescuing Neuter, but things are clearly ramping up at the end.
You're not concerned for, will Neuter live or die? Will Taylor perform first aid correctly?
I mean, I am concerned about that, but it's a little less action-packed than combat.
Yeah. I also agree I was more, stressed out in a way that it's I'm worried Taylor's not going to do a good job, but I'm not really worried that, Neuter is about to die if Taylor
I didn't think
up.
He was about to die. No.
Yeah.
I was
his fate
worried,
is unclear.
I was more worried they were about to get interrupted by Loom bursting through a wall.
Which does actually happen at the end.
Yes, but once they've sort of finished their first aid. But they really take a while doing the first aid stuff. Yeah. It's not
very
really
procedural. You get into the details.
If it were D&D, they wouldn't be in combat time anymore, I think, for most of this chapter.
You're right.
How it felt
that's a good way. That's a good way to put it. Who's summarizing?
I believe it's me.
Then take it away.
All right. So in this chapter, what happened? They're running into the building to rescue Neuter. They leave Labyrinth behind with the damaged sniper. And Bitch is like, we should be fighting Loong, not helping this freak. And Sundancer's like, what? Why wouldn't we help him? And Bitch is like, it's his fault he got hurt. And Taylor has to convince her by kind of leaning close and being like, if we let him die, Faultline could kill Regent or Tattletale. We don't want that to happen. So Bitch does go ahead and direct them towards the staircase that leads up to Neuter. He's on the second floor. They can't ride the dog up there. So they all go up, and you get this wonderful problem of, okay, Neuter, their ally, he's injured. They need to help him, but they literally can't touch him.
Yeah.
Because all of his bodily fluid is hallucinogenic, potentially even lethal at a high enough dose.
Yeah. Neuter's in a pool of his own blood, and the stakes are if you get that blood on your skin, you are off to La La Land.
Out of commission. Yeah, there are a bunch
Jinkies.
Of the ABB members kind of on the floor, writhing, trying to crawl away, in various states of out-of-itness because they have been affected by Neuter's power. So they do a few things. Taylor sends Bitch down to look for first aid supplies and also gloves. I neglected to mention, they realized on the way in the building, Taylor recognized, okay, they weren't doing prostitution or human trafficking or anything. This is a drug packaging facility. There's all this white powder around. People didn't have clothes on, presumably so that they wouldn't have to deal with powder on their clothes or so they wouldn't be able to steal the drugs and, smuggle them on their person. So Bitch goes down to look for gloves and stuff. Taylor goes into a bedroom at the end of the hall and finds a plastic sheet on a bed. And she comes back, and Bitch has found some gloves. There's a first aid kit, but doesn't have any good bandages in it.
Yeah.
So Taylor sends her down to the room where the workers were storing their clothes and says, grab me women's purses, as many as you can find. And Bitch is kind of glaring at her and not moving. And Taylor's like, do it now. And so Bitch goes, and when she comes back, Taylor manages to find in the purses a few menstrual pads, sanitary napkins kind of things, the big ones, that she can put over the wound and use as a bandage.
Yeah.
So she's taping it down. She is nervous about her skills. She just had 1 month's worth of first aid classes on the weekend, not a very thorough training course. But she gets the wound taped up. Neuter's still breathing. They put on the gloves and manage to wrap him in the plastic sheet, and they bring him down the stairs and put him on Brutus. And then either Fenya or Menya's hand breaks through the wall in front of them. And then I think the implication is Loong kind of rips up part of the wall. Some of the ABB, terrified, runs in to escape from the giantesses. And then Taylor, Sundancer, Bitch, and Brutus, with the unconscious Neuter on his back, are in the building with a bunch of the ABB who just seem kind of scared and confused. then Loon comes in, and then giantesses come in, they shrink a little to get into the building, and then they grow again. And Taylor says, like, bitch, you have to go, you have to take Neuter, pick up the wounded soldier, pick up anyone else who needs medical aid, call Tattletale, get the number for that Cape doctor, get them medical help.
Yeah.
And bitch is kind of not moving, and Taylor's like, look, do you want to fight, or do you want to make sure that Faultline doesn't kill our team members? Please go. And bitch, like, still hesitates, and Taylor's like, I could have slapped her, but then bitch does go. And then it's just this sort of pre-combat moment where Loon is there. He's like, maybe not fully dragoned out, but he's bigger than Taylor has seen him before. And he looks at Taylor and says, you.
Actually, he says, ooh, because he barely has a mouth anymore.
Right, his mouth is this weird X-shaped hole filled with teeth, which is the weirdest image. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I want to read that later. But he says ooh, but Taylor knows he's saying
Taylor interprets
you.
it as you. It's possible he meant something else. Maybe he meant food, which is also bad. But as I had, predicted, I had predicted it for this chapter, but we didn't really get there until the very end. He is singling out Taylor for revenge.
Yeah.
He has a personal grudge.
It would be a very Visser 3 move, citing Animorphs here, to go on a revenge campaign against Skitter with the end goal of eating her.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a dragon. He probably could do that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I didn't mention Taylor's bugs at all in the summary. The only thing they really do, they do some recon for her, but mostly what they do is, this was a drug packaging facility. There was a lot of money. Taylor sets the bugs on autopilot, collecting the money en masse while she's, like, trying to save Neuter. She's like, I can't get distracted. They can do it without any instruction from me, which is amazing.
I just want to read this part. It's also, like, I kind of hate it. This is just a description of bugs doing stuff, but it's both very cool and very creepy at the same time.
What's wrong with bugs doing stuff? Bugs just can't even do things today.
Why am I reading this story? There's so many bugs. Within a second or two of my having the thought, the mass of roaches, centipedes, pillbugs, and ants flowed into the piles of money and began pushing it all off the desk or into paper bags. Houseflies and wasps gathered on the bills that tried to fly through the air and retrieved them. It wasn't perfect, it was a little clumsy, but it still caught me off guard just how well they were able to coordinate for something like that, without any conscious direction on my part. It's really cool.
It's so cool.
I love it. Yeah.
And it feels like a little bit of an advance in her abilities, which we've seen a few others recently. But this thing where she can just set them doing this, and she doesn't have to give them continual input. They just kind of know how to do it.
Right.
Which is amazing, because I would have figured an individual bug isn't going to be able to connect with the other bugs to know, like, okay, if I lift this edge of the piece of paper, that will get us where we want to go.
Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
what does that suggest to you about her power?
That she is still, it's not like she's given the directions to the bugs and they're just doing it on their own. It's that there is still a part of her mind that is coordinating them.
Yeah.
And is actively doing so, kind of the way when she was passed out, she was still calling them to her.
Yeah.
So she's almost able to set, not the bugs working on their own, but her power working on its own.
Right.
While
exactly.
her conscious mind does other things.
Yeah. That's a really good insight.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It was occurring to me, you said, like, her powers have grown, but I also wonder if it could be that, but it could also be like she has thought about giving them simple commands. Like, we don't really see a lot of her testing before the story starts, but it could just be that, she's kind of like, oh, well, like, I'll just tell them to gather the money. And, like, she's never thought that would work before, but
like
she just kind of tries
command?
it casually, and then she's like, oh, like,
they're
it's sort
surprisingly good at this.
Right. So it's really interesting, like, what level of abstraction is too abstract for her to be able to, run the bugs on autopilot.
I just had an amazing thought.
Okay.
So, when Taylor controls a swarm of bugs, a lot of them end up dying, but not all of them.
Yeah.
We don't really have any reason to think that Taylor controlling the bugs makes them more intelligent, but what if it did? And what if this was a modification that could be passed down? Bugs reproduce very quickly. So if some of her swarm escapes from each fight, having been made a little bit more complex, And that complexity can be passed on to the next generation. And she's continually gathering bugs in the area of Brockton Bay. The bug population of Brockton Bay could at some point become noticeably more intelligent.
That is, one, so scary, and two, a great theory. I like that a lot.
I would love to see that. I think it would be, you know, kind of an exponential growth thing. So honestly, this is too early in the story to even be a good example of it.
But it's another good, it's like, it's really fun to see at the beginning of such a long story a boulder that's been budged just a tiny little bit, and how much steam could it pick up as the story continues.
The story's so long, this could be something that happens in it.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So where should we dive in?
I mean, I feel like there's a lot to talk about with Bitch.
Yes. And with Taylor kind of leading this rescue. Yeah.
What do you...
Let's talk about Taylor first.
Let's get into it.
So in the very first paragraph, she says, you know, she feels bad leaving Labyrinth, but I couldn't use someone who couldn't communicate with me, which is fascinating language.
Yeah.
Like, she is working with this team of people. She has Bitch, who's one of her teammates. She has Sundancer, who's a member of another team, sort of united for this. Potentially she could have Labyrinth, who is a member of Neuter's team, you know.
Yeah.
And she is thinking of it as what she can use. Like, these people are the tools at her disposal.
Exactly.
She is taking this, like, very, very forceful leadership role.
Yeah.
She's probably the youngest of them.
Yeah.
She's probably the least experienced.
Yeah.
But this is a very natural role for her, just like telling these other people what to do. She has a very clear goal. She feels strongly that Neuter needs to be rescued, and she's going to make it happen. She doesn't really explain her thinking necessarily along the way. Like, she just tells Bitch to go get the purses, and Bitch is like kind of reluctant, and Taylor just yells at her to do it. And she's not viewing, I don't know if it's that she's viewing herself entirely as the leader. I think it's more that she's viewing this as like, oh, this is a thing that has to be done and I'm going to do it. How can I make use of the people around me? Which I think is a little bit of a different, like, mind.
Right. I don't think she sees herself as a natural leader or taking a leadership role.
Right. She's just like, this thing needs to happen and I'm going to do it.
She sees the end goal.
Yeah.
She has a strong opinion about how to get there. Mm-hmm. And she is working on the world to make all those things happen.
Yeah. The end goal, I mean, it's clearly to rescue Neuter. I was a little surprised. So what she says to Bitch, to kind of motivate Bitch, is like, look, if we let him die, do you think Fault Line isn't going to take it out on our team members?
Yeah.
And when I was first reading that, I was like, oh, is that her real motivation? Because I thought she just wanted to rescue Neuter because he was a member of their team and he had fallen, and she sees herself as a hero, and, you know, heroes wouldn't leave people behind. But on the other hand, he is a villain. So would she feel a heroic duty to rescue a villain? Maybe, if she's working on a team with them. But I think maybe what she says to Bitch is actually at least a significant part of her motivation.
That's really interesting. She also says, in the middle of some of the first aid drama, I love how decisive she is. I love how she's showing off her first aid skills. But I also love how unsure she is, right? So she's talking about, like, Sundancer says, well, you didn't tape down the pad all the way. She's like, well, you want to leave room for the wounds to breathe. And she's like, is that right? Like, I don't really know. And then she thinks, if I failed here, what right did I have to call myself an aspiring hero?
She's really hard on herself.
Yeah.
She's like, if I don't manage to rescue this person with this major wound who is lying in a pool of, like, hallucinogenic blood, then, like, what can I do?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. I mean, there are a couple ways to read it. I read it as, like, she feels a moral duty to save Neuter.
Yeah, I do think that's in there.
But there's a little bit of, like, if I failed here, like, you know, that's not how the emphasis is written, but, like, I wonder if it's also a little bit like, well, this is my objective, and now that I've said it, I have to, like, get an A+. But I think it's more... I mean, it's less so, right? She's a leader making a tough call. And it's almost like if you imagine if you imagine taking a sort of like utilitarian approach to a superhero combat situation, it seems like she has weighted saving Neuter's life like high above anything else that it sort of reduces the complexity of the situation down to like, well, we have to put all of our effort into doing this thing because it's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess it's very like black and white, right? She's not, it's very capable and very moral, but it's also, it strikes me as very extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little what I meant also, I think, with her being hard on herself. Like, she has developed this inflexible view very quickly that, like, oh, this is what I have to do, and if I can't do it, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
I also wonder, like, she also seemed to like Neuter and get a good impression of him. And I wonder if it had been someone who was, like, kind of crappier to her. Like, no, I don't know. I think, having asked that question, I think she would still want to save the life of a teammate who had been terrible. If it were Kaiser up there...
Yeah.
That's a harder question.
An interesting test for her.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I think she would think that the heroic thing to do would be to save him.
Yeah.
Because he was her ally.
Yeah. It's so interesting, though, the point you raise about, like, is what she says to Bitch her trying to, manipulate, not necessarily in, like, a bad way, but, like, convince. Yeah. Is she trying to convince her, saying, like, well, this is what would make sense to Bitch.
Yeah, she's not an aspiring hero.
Or is it more authentic to how Taylor's actually feeling? Because Taylor never thinks to herself in that rationalization. She only uses it when talking to Bitch, which, it didn't really occur to me that might be how she really felt. It seemed more like
when I first read it, it felt like how she was convincing Bitch, not how she really felt. But I do think we sometimes don't get told her motivations.
Yeah, no, of course.
Like, she's thinking about the situation. We don't really get told what her motivations are other than that, though the bit later about, could I even call myself an aspiring hero, kind of indirectly gets at it. But I think there have been instances in other chapters where I'm like, is she even thinking about the danger of infiltrating the Undersiders and, like, her emotional, her emotions getting compromised? And then later she's like, I was obviously aware of the danger. And I was like, oh, okay, you just weren't thinking about it in the narration at that point.
Exactly.
So it's hard to say, I think. This could at least, she's not wrong about the danger to Tattletale and Regent, but I also think you're right that she does feel a sort of just straight up moral duty to save this guy who fell in combat with her. Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess the thing that makes sense to me is more... Her motive is more like a hero wouldn't let Neuter die, but she feels like she can't say that. And so that the thing that she would say to a villain is, well, it's like the golden rule. And we're in this situation where everybody's got, a gun pointed at our friends. And so we've got to, Right, they're sort of more selfish. Self-interested.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But going back to what you said at the start of this bit about Taylor, she says Labyrinth, like, is it somebody that she can't communicate with? And then this thing that you were saying, she's trying to persuade Bitch to kind of do her bidding in this chapter. But what the chapter really goes on to show is that she's having a ton of difficulty communicating with Bitch. It's like a real through line through the chapter.
Honestly, just to stick with the Labyrinth thing for a second, it's surprising that she thinks she can't communicate with Labyrinth, because it's not like Labyrinth doesn't understand her.
Right.
And mostly she's talking to Bitch in this. Bitch isn't really saying much back.
Right.
And so I'm not sure why she thought she couldn't communicate with Labyrinth. It's sort of an interesting short-sightedness, like, oh, she can't talk, therefore I can't communicate with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with Bitch. So Bitch says straight up at the beginning, like, we should be fighting Lou, not helping the Freak. And then I found Sundancer's role here really intriguing. Mm-hmm. She doesn't argue for anything. She asks Bitch a few questions, which made me think about the Travelers as this group that's sort of interested in things. Like, this situation was really interesting. They didn't want to stay away. She must have had some reason for joining this group that sort of travels around and doesn't have this home. And I wonder if they have almost like a collective philosophy of, like, gaining knowledge, insight, seeing things, like just sort of learning about things.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Because it feels a little aloof from...
Right. It's not exactly don't interfere, because, she is here in this combat situation with them, though she hasn't fought.
Yeah.
But she seems like she's prepared to if the correct opportunity arises. But she says, what? Why wouldn't we help him? Which is a really interesting question. My immediate read was like, she was like, of course we should help him. But now I'm like, maybe she was just asking a question, because that's sort of her approach.
She's
that's sort of
just,
maybe the traveler approach to,
She's sort of asking as a journalist.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, why would you say that we shouldn't help,
Yeah.
And Bitch says, his fault if he got hurt. And if you got hurt, Sundancer challenged her, you'd want us to leave you? Again, with the questions. Like, it's, again, easy to read that as her saying, like, well, if you got hurt, you wouldn't want us to leave you, therefore we shouldn't leave Neuter. But that's not really what she's saying. All she's doing is asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, challenge does make me feel like she's a little heated, but it is really interesting.
Yeah, and Bitch says, fuck no, but I wouldn't be surprised if you did. We're helping him, I stated, firm.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that one, I guess, problem with having Bitch on your team is her view is so, like, everyone for themselves. Not that
so
she thinks that's good, she just thinks that's how it is.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So
she doesn't want it to be that way, but that's what she expects.
Yeah. It's actually, and that view is kind of antithetical to Taylor saying, like, oh, we're helping him. Like, it feels like Taylor maybe is correctly judging that she's not going to win her over based on the sort of, like, it's good to help him.
Right, and Bitch does have this sort of allegiance to her pack, and that's what Taylor draws on.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's interesting. What else do you think about is going on with Bitch in this chapter? I have a few points, but
I want to talk about this interaction where Taylor does talk to her. So Taylor says, we're helping him. Bitch says, yeah, I'm the one telling this big lug where to go. She slaps Reese's neck. I would have yelled at her. Should have, maybe. Instead, I just leaned forward until I was pressing against her back and spoke into her ear. We let him die. You think Faultline's going to let it slide? She might hurt or kill Tattletale or Regent in retaliation. So this, again, feels like Taylor implicitly rejecting Brian's approach to managing Bitch and choosing instead to appeal to her in a way that does actually play on things that Bitch cares about. So she doesn't yell. She instead makes this argument based on, like, let's protect our teammates. To do that, we have to do this.
Right.
Now, later in the chapter, I think she does just kind of yell instructions at Bitch. Yeah.
She shouts at her, because the first time she goes to get medical supplies, Bitch listens to her. The second time, she does not listen. So Taylor yells at her, and then she goes. And then the final beat is when she's like, you need to get Neuter to help. And she has the thought, I wanted to hit her. I think she yells some more at the end there.
At the end, it's really interesting. So what Taylor says after, Lung has crashed through the wall, Taylor's like, you have to leave now. Bitch says, but which do you want more, to fight here and now, or to make sure Faultline and the other groups don't have an excuse to do anything to our teammates? It seems like Taylor is viewing Bitch's incentives as, like, Bitch wants to fight. Which we do know. Bitch likes fighting. She likes being able to, like, get let off the leash, basically. On the one hand, she wants to fight. On the other hand, she wants to rescue Neuter so their teammates will be okay. It's really fascinating to me that it doesn't occur to Taylor that, like, maybe Bitch wants to make sure her teammate Taylor is okay in this fight versus Lung in the APB. Like, that's actually a really dangerous situation that Taylor is leaving herself in. And she views herself as this aspiring hero, so she's like, this is fine.
I was really worried that Bitch was going to take all three dogs. I was like, Taylor, this is, like, suicidal. But she only takes Brutus and leaves the other two.
And, I mean, the giants are on their side, so it's...
Of course,
right, exactly. Not as bad as it could seem.
I should mention, I don't know that we said it when Fenya and Menya were introduced, what their power is.
Oh, did we not?
I don't know, but just in case, they're sort of Valkyrie-themed, and their power is that they can make themselves giant.
Yeah.
They can make themselves, like, 20 feet tall.
I was so curious about this. So they're twins.
Yes.
And they have the same power.
Yes.
How did this manifest for them?
Good question.
Did they have the same experience together? They could have had, like, one trigger event. They probably did.
Yeah.
But the fact that it manifested the same way in them, I mean, twins are identical in DNA, potentially. I think they are identical twins, so they probably are identical in DNA. But, like, they're not the same people. Yeah.
It's a really, really fascinating question.
I wonder if it's just sort of a, like, they're twins, so they have the same power. Like, it's kind of, it's an aesthetic choice. Or if it is actually like, again, I don't know how much this work is going to get into the whys and hows of superpowers, but like, is this pointing to the potential to get a certain power being somehow in your DNA, or like, I don't know, it's a potentially really significant piece
maybe
of data.
They don't have the same power, and this is how they like to present themselves to people.
Oh, that's a cool theory. Right, they both have a suite of powers that includes being giant, but that is not...
Or one of them can make people giant, and the other one has a different thing.
Or the other one doesn't have a power.
Yeah.
Why would the other one need a power if their twin can make them giant?
There's some very interesting possibilities here.
Unfortunately, I feel like that's not true, because if it were true, you wouldn't have said it. But I do like it as a possibility.
Hey, sometimes I forget what's true, and I accidentally spoil things.
That's fair, yeah.
My other favorite, I feel like I took us on this tangent, but when they do show up at the end, Taylor says, Fenya carried a sword and a round shield, while Menya had a spear. Or the other way around, whatever. It's like, this is exactly.
I was like, these two are interchangeable, but that's not really how twins work. At least my understanding from twins.
Sundancer calling them the outsiders is the same kind of like, I don't know what your deal is, and I don't care.
Yes.
But we were talking about Bitch.
Yes.
And she might have wanted to stay and help Taylor.
Yeah.
It is so interesting. I mean, I do think that the angle that Taylor is working here, Bitch, we're on a team, you have to protect your other teammates, it does seem to be effective. Mm-hmm. But the method of communicating with Bitch is not effective. And what I see in Taylor here is the seeds of, like, what has led Brian to be a really awful teammate to Bitch. Taylor's getting frustrated, and she doesn't have the capacity to, like, figure out why, Bitch isn't playing along. And what she's doing is resorting to yelling and considering using violence to just sort of, like, dominate her. And to your point earlier, she's not explaining to anyone what her plan is. Like, I do wonder if she'd said, oh, I think it would be great to find some bandages. I bet sanitary pads would be great for that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can go find some purses or something, instead of being like, bitch, get me all the purses.
I wonder how much that's the narrative wanting to leave us in suspense a little bit. Because if you say, let's go find the purses, they might have sanitary pads in them. You can't just go find the purses and then they have sanitary pads in them.
Right.
So I wonder if that's Taylor being a little bit hamstrung by narrative necessity.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I think it is very intentional also that despite we've had some, like, nicer moments over the past few chapters between Taylor and Bitch, and this is showing, I think, maybe on the page in the most direct way, the sort of, like, why people find it difficult to be on Bitch's team.
Although, honestly, like, Bitch isn't even really difficult here. Like, Taylor does have to talk her into rescuing Neuter, but she successfully does. Bitch is hesitant to go grab the women's purses, which you could imagine anyone hesitating to do, being like, I'm sorry, we're in a first date situation and you want the women's purses? Like, what? But then when Taylor's like, just, do it, she does it. And then at the end, when Taylor's like, go take these people to get medical help, I'll stay here and fight this dragon, Bitch hesitates. Is like, but, like, honestly, it doesn't seem like Bitch is being very difficult here. Taylor is getting frustrated.
That's true. Maybe I'm too, like...
You're too Brian-pilled.
How dare you? I'm going to say I'm too Taylor-pilled. Because I really feel the frustration in Taylor's inner narration. Maybe I'm reading into it, and that's not a charitable read, but I feel like Taylor is losing her patience throughout the chapter. And
well, the issue is Taylor doesn't trust Bitch's judgment. Possibly for good reasons, and possibly because she's heard so much about Bitch from the other team members. I think, like, Taylor does get impatient, and I feel like their dynamic is much worse at the end of the chapter than it was, at the end of the last chapter. One of the things they tell you when they talk about parenting is that, like, the important thing is not that you never, like, lose your temper, raise your voice at your kid. The important thing is how you repair afterwards. So I think what's going to be really impactful for Taylor and Bitch's relationship going forward is, does Taylor try to touch base about this after the fact, and how does she address it? we saw the point that Brian has gotten to with trying to address things with Bitch, which is slamming her against a wall and like yelling at her and feeling really frustrated. Will Taylor be able to find a better way through to be able to connect with Bitch about what happened in this battle or not?
Yeah.
So that I think is going to be important.
Yeah.
Because I do honestly think like everything Bitch does is pretty reasonable here. And like she actually does do all the things that Taylor ends up telling her to do. So
yeah, thinking about it more, I think you're right. And I think the thing that clicked for me just now is that I'm getting really into, like, Taylor has assumed this mantle of leadership, but Bitch doesn't see her that way. And why would she?
Why should she? Yeah.
Right. So what Taylor's getting frustrated by is like, you're not obeying me implicitly, which is not how the Undersiders work at all. Like, they're constant. Even their normal team dynamic is there's always a lot of sort of like talking, and there's not a clear.
Any of the Undersiders in this situation would have pushed back against Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. And so
some of them would have used more words than others.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely think it's a little bit of how Taylor sees Bitch in this chapter, but it could also be maybe I'm less willing to cut Bitch slack than I would be if it were Tattletale.
No, I think that's true. I think Taylor is too.
Yeah. I do. And I want to say there's a big difference between the fact that she even had to think about it, I could have slapped her, and actually hitting her.
Yes, true.
Right. Big difference there. But I think it is also intentional that Taylor is getting this frustrated. And that's meant to show that Taylor isn't perfect.
Yes, that's true. Actually, so a big chunk of her inner monologue in this chapter, she kind of goes on for a little bit about drugs. She's realized that this facility is a drug packaging facility, and she reflects that she is maybe more disturbed by the presence of the drugs in the building, this whole drug operation, than she was by like fighting Oni Lee.
Yeah.
And she has a history of just seeing people struggle with drugs and like seeing classmates kind of disappear because either they or their family members like fell into drug troubles. And she said it's like to the point where she gets like really uncomfortable, like really anxious, even like around someone who's high, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting, like, especially seeing her in this chapter, like, telling people what to do, trying to get them to do it. She is someone who really likes to be in control, certainly of herself. I mean, I think this is something she and Brian really have in common. She is able to control herself very well and likes to choose when to let that control go a little bit. And I identify with that a lot. Like, that's one of the reasons I've always, like, had varying degrees of discomfort around drugs and alcohol, is just that I'm someone who likes to feel in control of myself and of my faculties. So I really see that in Taylor.
Yeah.
And I see the same kind of control issues is maybe a strong word when applied to the drugs and alcohol context, but, like, the same desire for control when she's like, Labyrinth, I can't use her. Like,
yeah.
Bitch, just do what I told you.
Yeah.
And she's very much in control of herself. She's not someone who, I wouldn't say she like hungers for control over other people, but when she's trying to get this task done, she is taking a very utilitarian approach to the people around her and like wants to be able to use them as tools.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good observation. I mean, I felt like the way Taylor thinks about drugs, it felt very on point for like a high school perspective. It resonated with me. I think like I was less like anxious about drugs as a 15-year-old. I was certainly
less exposed to them than it seems like Taylor has been.
But I think I probably would have been more in a like, oh, like, well, drugs are bad and people who do drugs are bad.
Yeah, a little more judgmental.
Yeah. Which
me as well, yeah.
Yeah, Taylor isn't here, but I do feel like the thing that she said that really felt true to my experience was the, like, when stuff would come up, issues around drugs and alcohol, the fact that, like, people didn't talk about it directly, or like there would be an allusion to it, like, oh, somebody, there was some kind of incident, and then the grown-ups wouldn't fully explain it, but like you maybe hear rumors for the other kids and stuff, and they were things that maybe like I didn't fully understand, and that idea of like, oh, these things, they're like secret or hidden from view and like stigmatized. I do think there was like a lot of anxiety around that. that comes through in like what Taylor is feeling here.
Yeah, it is good to reflect. Like, she's very worldly as 15-year-olds go, but she's only 15. I mean, compared to me at 15, good heavens, she's doing great.
And yeah, it's interesting. The other connection I wanted to make that she doesn't really make explicitly, but the chapter kind of invites, is Neuter's power is also psychoactive. And she
That's
says,
what she's afraid of. I mean,
I don't
for
want
very
to
practical reasons.
Right. I don't want to get a terminal overdose of
Yeah.
Neuter's power.
Which we don't have any reason to think is possible, but
Right.
certainly could be.
But it's sort of an interesting... I feel like there's some great, like, subtext here for Taylor if Newtbug does become a thing.
Oh my gosh,
he is a drug.
He is a drug. How
seductive and scary.
Can he turn it off at all? Probably not. Can he even, like, touch someone else? Maybe he can only touch Gregor.
Touch-starved neuter.
Touch-starved neuter. It's going to be like Pushing Daisies, where they have a relationship through saran wrap.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I would watch that / read it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The perspective she shares here does feel very, like, sort of sheltered and not as worldly as she is in other ways, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And it is going to be really interesting to see if that perspective changes in the way that it might.
Once she starts dating Neuter.
Yeah.
Has to get high every time they kiss.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a real, like, kind of losing it for a while for her, is like she just gets high on, like, Neuter makeouts and, like, is in, like, a drug den of just, like...
Yeah.
Hit me again.
Right.
That's after she betrays the Undersiders and then goes into an emotional spiral.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know what there's to say about it, but Taylor suggests that there's like 50% unemployment in Brockton Bay. Did you catch that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is like Great Depression levels of unemployment.
That's pretty bad,
in Brockton Bay. It is wild. So that it's not like, I'm sure that the drug trade that these villains are all peddling is doing a ton of damage to the community. But it would be really interesting if sort of coming to have a more mature, empathetic understanding of like people who do drugs and like being able to use in moderation or like other kind of perspectives on like, you know, things.
Yeah. I don't think
part of like becoming an adult or like maybe having some of your childish feelings
like your
fall
fears,
away.
Yeah.
In the same way that we're kind of imagining her views of heroes will also kind of like become more nuanced.
Point. It is worth noting, like, she does seem to lack nuance in her view of drugs, but she doesn't seem to be villainizing people who use them.
That's true.
Which I do think is notable, and that's something that a lot of kids have not achieved.
Yeah, and even she talks about, like, the people who are working in the building. She suggests several times in her narration that they're, like, being coerced or, like, they're not, you know. So she has a pretty good understanding of who the real villains are.
Yes. Ironically. Speaking of villains, I really liked Sundancer. She wasn't super active in this, but she was very helpful to Taylor.
Yes.
And like I liked her questions a bitch at the beginning, and then her sort of commentary on her gang in the previous chapter. I feel like she's going to be important. I feel like she's going to come back a lot.
Solid prediction.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I say.
Important in what way? What do you see for her?
I think she is going to continue to be an ally to Taylor in some way, shape, or form.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's fun to try and get you to call a specific shot every once in a while.
Speaking of, should I try to predict what's going to happen in the next chapter?
Well, why don't I set the stakes for our listeners a little bit?
Sure.
Loom's here, and he's bigger and badder than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly 15 feet in height, covered in layers of scales that left him barely recognizable as human. Spear-like growths stuck out of his shoulders and what I realized were the beginnings of wings.
He can totally fly.
His mask had been torn off at some point, and the features of his face had been warped by his transformation. The shape of his skull and face were more cat-like than human, and his nose and mouth were a single X-shaped opening, bristling with pointed teeth that stuck in every direction.
I am having the worst trouble picturing that X bristling with pointed teeth as anything except for something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like, is this like something, is that like a dragon thing to have an X-shaped mouth? Like, I don't have any reference for what this would look like.
I get mid-morph vibes from it.
Oh, that's
like
possible.
This is his snout forming, maybe. Like his mouth and nose are merging together into something that's protruding, and they're in a kind of halfway state. That's kind of how I'm imagining.
Okay, that does actually make sense. That hadn't occurred to me.
Cat-like does remind me more of either like a Chinese dragon design or like...
which would make sense.
Smog from the Hobbit 70s Bass Rankin animated movie looks very cat-like to me.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I assume he is a Chinese dragon. That would make sense. Though, do those dragons fly? They have little wings, I think.
Yeah, I mean, some of them... They don't traditionally breathe fire, either. That's a very...
Okay, that's a great point.
Western dragon thing.
So maybe he has influence from multiple mythologies.
Right. That's another interesting, like, who and how was it decided what, Lung's powers are, and are they genuine? Like, are people just looking at his power set and say, I guess it's kind of dragon-like, or is, like, Lung like, this is...
Well, no one in the story has said that still. I think it's just us saying it. It's just us looking at his power set and saying he turns into a dragon.
That's right. Yeah, nobody has called it out so far.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one other thing. Massachusetts has been flipped upside down, and dragons don't exist. No, Lung has dragon tattoos. We know that he has dragons. Are real. Dragons are real.
Dragons are real. You heard it here, folks.
So Lung's here. He's big and bad, and he says "ooh."
He says "ooh." He's just really impressed with her costume. Okay, clearly we're gonna have a combat where Lung is targeting Taylor. Taylor does have a lot of strong allies here. Unfortunately, they're white supremacists, but Kaiser, Fenya, Menya. And then we don't know Sundancer's power yet. We also have 2 of the dogs. So I think Lung is going to immediately attack Taylor. She doesn't have a lot of bugs here right now. And he's also so far advanced in his dragon state that I don't think the bugs would be able to get much purchase on him. I don't know how much of it is covered by scales. She could certainly target the dick again, but again, he's pretty far along. He probably has a dragon dick at this point. Is that susceptible to bug bites? Who knows? So her power specifically is not going to be super useful. She might have more success using it to fend off some of the minions. So she's going to be attacked immediately. Fenya and Menya will be able to help defend her. The dogs can help defend her. I do think Sundancer's power is going to come into play. I think we're going to have a chapter where it's like the good guys on the back foot scrambling, Taylor struggling to stay alive, sort of being buffeted about by this battle.
Yeah.
And I think Sundancer's power is going to be really cool. Maybe she turns into a sun.
Whoa.
But the problem is the dragons are probably fireproof.
Fair.
So I don't know. We'll see. I think the next chapter will end with Taylor being, on the verge of being killed. Very precarious situation, ultimate danger. Of course, she will get out of it, but that's how the next chapter will end.
Yeah. What would you do in this situation? Either as you yourself or if you were in Taylor's shoes.
I think you would probably want to flee because you are small and breakable, and hope that he gets stopped by the giant's metal-clad person and or dogs. Because, she's really a distant fighter, right? She's a ranged fighter.
Yeah.
So she would probably immediately want to flee the area because she doesn't want to get burned to a crisp. Yeah, I mean, turn and run. I think she probably would do it in a direction opposite to where Bitch went because she is a hero and doesn't want her injured allies, to get burnt up. Right,
at least lead him off somewhere else.
Exactly, yeah.
Very noble.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, there are no new cape names, but I'd be happy to read you the top line of the next chapter. Yeah, me, I answered Lung, hoping I
sounded impressive and not terrified.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Very excited for the next chapter.
Next time on Inchworm.
Worm is a web serial by J.C. McCrae. You can read Worm at parahumans.wordpress.com and support the author at patreon.com/wildvote. Follow us on Tumblr and Blue Sky at Inchworm Podcast, or find our Discord link and any other updates on inchwormpodcast.com.